They say that God is all-loving, but if you ask me, there are 3 things that he actually hates. Number 1, Satan. Number 2, the Bills. And number 3, and most of all, Florida. Don't sit there and tell me that God loves Florida. Like everyone else, he hates it. That's why he pisses on it every day. Florida sticks out of the rest of the US so that God can easily distinguish it from everything else in order to throw hurricanes at it every summer. But they get hurricanes other places too, I hear you whine. Well, hey, even Randy Johnson missed sometimes. The never-ending blanket of stagnant heat and humidity drives everyone down here insane. All those stories you hear about crazy-ass motherfuckers huffing bath salts and eating people's faces? Yeah, there's a reason you don't hear about those in fucking Idaho. The only people here not going apeshit are the hordes of senior citizens that have already died mentally and are just waiting for their wrinkled corpses to follow suit. And don't sit there and tell me about all the good things we have. I would gladly trade you all the orange juice, tourist traps, and white sandy beaches in the world to not be trapped with a bunch of sick fucks and old farts. And probably the worst thing about this damn state is the wildlife. Half the things living here aren't even supposed to be here at all. And I'm not just talking about the pythons either. That's just the tip of the iceberg. No, there are monitor lizards, Nile crocodiles, giant South American rodents, and even monkeys. Fucking monkeys. Multiple different kinds of fucking monkeys. Only Floridians would be stupid enough to get fucking monkeys as pets, let them go, and then not do anything about them. I mean, it's not as if our native wildlife is any better. Alligators, crocodiles, yeah, we have both. Venomous snakes, spiders, scorpions, bears, bobcats, panthers, fire ants. I mean, need I say more? And the landscape itself is disgusting. Nothing but stinking, festering swampland as far as the eye can see. You step outside your back door, and you're already knee-deep in soft mud, trudging through clouds of mosquitoes, horseflies, and gnats. Sooner or later, you'll start to feel ants crawling up your pant legs. Your senses will be immediately assaulted with the constant odor of decaying plants and the unending din of frogs and insects. This is not the kind of place that sane people go for a calming nature walk. That's a lesson I learned when I was 9 years old. My dad and I went for a hike through the Everglades as a birthday present. Hey, come to Florida to see our world-famous national park, a giant-ass swamp. Dad got me this brand new fishing pole, and we were planning on trying it out there. The fishing was amazing. You didn't even need to use any bait. We just dropped our hooks in, and 2 seconds later, up came the fish. We just stood there in the water up to our calves, and the fishing just happened on its own. As the sun was starting to get low in the sky, Dad went back to the car to get some more Coke for the cooler. He left me on my own to keep fishing. But at that point, the fishing was getting kind of boring. No challenge, you know? So I started skipping rocks, keeping an eye out for gators as well as leeches. I'd already gotten 2 on my ankles. Ugh. Things kept getting darker, and there was still no sign of Dad. I was starting to cross that threshold, where you go from being frustrated at someone to worried about them. When the sun had finally dipped below the horizon, I set off back to the car to look for him. Looking back on it, I should have gone earlier, or else stayed put. Either way, it would have saved me the trouble of wandering around a bog in the middle of the night. Still barefoot from fishing, the mud was cold as it swished in between my toes, and I could feel things crawling underneath my soles. Even though I couldn't see them, I could hear the slithering of snakes underneath the underbrush and frogs splashing in the brown water. All the noises of the marsh seemed louder at night. I don't know if it was my hearing compensating for my lack of vision, or the thought of being in the Everglades alone at night was starting to freak me out. The only animals I could make out were the gators, whose eyes shined yellow in the darkness. As you probably guessed by now, I ended up getting lost. I figured I'd be able to find my way back by recognizing certain features in the landscape, but that plan doesn't work when it's too dark to see any of them. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like it was pitch black or anything, but not enough light to remember if that was the same dick-shaped rock as before. I tripped over many rocks, fallen logs, and tree trunks. But as I kept going, I tripped over something lighter that rolled with my foot. At first I thought it was a soccer ball, but as I turned back to look at it, I saw that it wasn't a ball of any kind. It was a desiccated, dull gray human head. Not a skull, it was still almost completely covered in skin and hair, though the nose and ears were missing. Being the kid that I wasn't so much scared or disturbed as I was fascinated. The mouth was wide open, as if in an expression of horror, and the eyes were a milky white color, as if the person was blind when alive. I don't know what your first reaction to this would be, but mine was to pick up a nearby stick and start poking it, as if to test if it was real. Man, kids sure do some strange, fucked up shit like that. I stuck the point of the stick in his nostrils, in his eyes, and inside his gaping mouth. I was about to pick up the skull with the stick and toss it around, but as I prodded the inside of the mouth, the head started to spasm. I drew back instantly, watching as it began shaking violently. The mouth began to tremble, before splitting off from the rest of the head, the dried out skin tearing like latex. Something started to emerge from the inside of the mouth. At first I thought they were fingers, but the more of them I saw, they looked like several huge spider legs. They wriggled out and clawed at the muddy earth in front of me, and began to crawl along the ground in my direction. The best way I can describe it was like some kind of horrible, giant hermit crab using a decapitated human head for a shell. Losing all dignity, I bolted off in the opposite direction, screaming like a 5-year-old girl and taking the longest strides I'd ever taken in my life. I wasn't watching where I was going at all, and it's nothing but dumb luck that I didn't step right into a gator's mouth. But thankfully, my high-pitched screaming alerted my dad, who found me by following the screams with a flashlight. I struggled to catch my breath as he asked me what it was that spooked me so much. Now, my dad never took me very seriously, and I knew he'd never believe me. And I didn't want to, kind of go through that, so I just told him that a gator snuck up on me, and left it at that. Dad told me that the reason it took him so long to get back was that he dropped the keys and lost them in the mud. Wouldn't exactly be out of character for him. Seeing how dark it was getting, we decided we were done for the day and went back to our fishing spot to pick up the cooler. All the while I stayed close to Dad and, kept my eyes fixed on the beam of his flashlight. I dreaded the sight of that goddamn thing creeping into the light, and yet a part of me was hoping that we would see it. It'd be nice for this to be a shared experience, but we didn't see so much as a corn snake. But as we were making our way back, Dad caught a glint of light from somewhere in a patch of shrubs by the car. When we went to investigate, he found a fully dressed human corpse lying on its back, spread-eagled. The glint of light that we saw was his Rolex, still strapped firmly to his right-hand wrist. The skin was as dried as beef jerky, and a sickly gray pallor that contrasted with his bright red shirt. The smell of the body was masked by the permanent odor of decay that covered the swamp. The red shirt blended in perfectly with the bloody splatter and jaggedly torn flesh at the base of his neck, where exposed muscles, organs, and bone were clearly visible. The head, nowhere to be found.